The episode starts with a woman sitting in a dark room on a chair and a man's voice asking to bring her back online. The lights turn on in the room, and the man asks the woman if she can hear him. She responds, but her lips are not moving, nor are her eyes blinking. The man asks her where she is, and she responds that she is in a dream. The woman's name is Dolores. The man tells her that there's nothing to be afraid of as long as she answers his questions correctly. The woman's body is so lifeless that nothing affects her, not even a fly that sits on her eyeball. The first question is posed: has she ever questioned her reality? The scene shifts to a bedroom. Dolores is lying on her bed, eyes closed. She replies with a no. Dolores wakes up and goes to her dad. She responds to the question. People like to see the ugliness of the world, but she sees the beauty, to believe that there is a purpose to our days. With the second question, what she thinks about the guests. The scene shifts to a well-dressed man traveling in a train. She answers that she likes to remember what her father told her, that once we were all new to this world, and the newcomers are looking for the same thing, a place to be free. The train stops at the station, and people pour out of it. A couple discusses that this place better be amazing because they are paying for it. The man from earlier, with a bag in his hand, gets out into the city. It's hustling and bustling with people and horses. Everyone's doing their work, different people in different attire. He enters a bar and asks for rye whiskey because it's not doing any good sitting in the bottle. As he gulps his whiskey, a woman all dressed up comes out of nowhere and touches his face and says that she'll give him a discount. She's probably talking about sleeping with him, but he very politely refuses the offer and says that he better earn someone's affection rather than pay for it. From the window he sees Dolores, and she catches his eyes. He goes after her. In the background, the man from the start asks the third question: does she feel inconsistencies or repetitions in this world? She responds that her life, like every other, has a routine, but with a single encounter, everything could change. Dolores drops something from her bag, and the man from the train picks it up for her. She is stunned to see him and says that he's back. He fetches his horse and goes with her. She tells him that she knew he would come back, because there is a path for everyone, and his path led him back to her. Later at night when they reach her home, they hear gunshots. He goes to check. Someone has her father pinned to the ground, and when he tries to speak, the man shoots him. The mother has already been taken out. In the meantime, Dolores' friend arrives and shoots the two men. Dolores reaches her home, but there is already a man near his father's deceased body. He slaps her, and when he tries to touch her face, her friend, Teddy, comes out and warns the intruder to keep his hands off her. But when Teddy tries to shoot him, nothing happens. Turns out you can never harm a newcomer, and they can do whatever they want. He goes toward Teddy, forces him to fall to his knees, and takes Dolores with. Teddy tries to shoot him from the back, but in vain. The man in black turns and shoots Teddy in the chest. The man from the start asks Dolores if all that he told her changed her perspective about the newcomer. She responds by saying that no, they all love the newcomers. The scene switches. Dolores is back in her bed, and Teddy is back on the train. History is repeating itself. This all is actually a setup, and all these are pawns of a game. In the lab, robots are being made and programmed to live in that world. Two scientists are discussing the behavior of one of their robots, who is programmed to be a hooker. The man gets a notification and leaves, and the woman kisses the robot. The scientist, Bernard, enters a room. Turns out there is a problem with some of his creation, and they need to solve it. Bernard and Ashley Stubbs, head of the questioning team, and other armed men go to the cold storage. The cooling system of the storage has been down for weeks, and the place is full of water. They go to the room with all the robots and start checking. They see two men sitting and talking. One is their boss, Ford, and the other is the second host the scientists built, Billy. Ford talks with Bernard. He tells him that the robots were decommissioned because a single handshake was used to give them away. Bernard appreciates the new gestures programmed by Ford, and in the background, Billy packs himself in a body bag. Back in the park, Dolores wakes up and goes to her daddy. He tells her to be back by dark. He warns her about boys because he once was one. And today, who he is just because of her daughter. Back in the city, Teddy reaches the city, goes to the bar, and sees Dolores. But when he tries to go after her, some men come up to her and start talking. Dolores drops the can, but this time, the man in black picks it up. He leaves and goes to the bar instead. The scene shifts to some people on horses. They are a new couple, talking with the town sheriff. Suddenly, the sheriff stutters while talking and stops responding. Back in the laboratory, it turns out that after the update, the robot had epilepsy. But it's not confirmed if the update is the reason. The head of quality assurance, Teresa, asks Bernard whether the 14 guests in the park are in danger or not. But he responds by saying no. She leaves but tells him that she needs to know about any weird activity. Back at the park, some men are having fun with a woman. They talk about how amazing this all is and say that Teddy is sort of a guide. When they get bored, they can use him for target practice. Teddy is sitting just outside the room, but his face is expressionless. He doesn't even blink when a fly sits on his face. In the next scene, Dolores is painting by the lake when a family comes by. The kid comments that Dolores isn't real, and instead of replying, she leaves because the sun is about to set. The scene shifts to Dolores' dad. Outside in the field, he finds something buried in the ground. When Dolores comes back home, she finds her dad looking closely at the paper, which turns out to be a photograph. The picture is from the real world, and her dad is confused about where the picture was taken. Back at the lab, Teresa is smoking when narrative writer Lee comes up to her and says that there should never have been an update. Ford and Bernard are trying to make the hosts more lifelike, but all this setup works because people know that who they are making love with and who they are killing are not real. He then suggests stopping the updates altogether. Lee then says that he fully supports her in dethroning Ford. He says that the management has a completely different interest in this project, but Teresa says that he's smart enough to guess that something big is going on, but not smart enough to guess what it is. At the park, the bartender, Kissy, leaves the bar but is attacked by the man in black. Back at the lab, Bernard is sitting with the sheriff and looking at a picture of a child when the other scientist, Elsie Hughes, comes in, stating that they have a problem. Walter, one of the hosts, wreaked havoc and eliminated many of the townspeople. Bernard, along with many others, arrives there. Teresa is angry that the host didn't do what he was supposed to. Bernard suggests taking them to the lab and then releasing them back into the park, but Teresa doesn't agree. She orders to extract all the updated hosts to check them and decommission the faulty ones. Later on, Bernard updates Ford about all the incidents happening, and Ford is shocked because Bernie hasn't been able to locate the bug. He responds by saying that it's all because of the code Ford created. Ford says that man is the product of trillions of mistakes, and this is as good as they can get in their creation. The man in black tortures Kissy and tells her that he knows there is a deeper level to this game, and he wants Kissy to show him how to get there. Once again, Dolores wakes up in her bed and goes to her dad. But this time, he didn't respond. He is totally invested in the picture he found in the field. Dolores calls her dad, but he starts saying weird things, and like the sheriff, he starts stuttering. He harshly holds his daughter and tells her to leave, whispering something inaudible in her ear. Lee tells Teresa that he has made Hector, a bandit, go to the town early. Hector, with all of his gang members, starts taking out the townspeople. In the midst of all this, Teddy is shot. Hector robs the bar, and when he is about to leave, one of his partners tries to take a girl with him but is shot in the face by Maeve, another hooker. Outside the bar, Hector sees his face on a most wanted poster, but when he is about to deliver a speech, he is shot in the neck by a guest. Later, the management comes and takes away all the updated hosts back to the lab. Stubbs and a behavior tech examine Dolores, and she is brought back online. He starts questioning her, and these are all those questions that were asked at the beginning of the episode. She answers them with an expressionless face. In another room, her father is being examined by Ford and Bernard. He tells his name, Peter Abernathy, and that his work is to tend to the herd, look after his wife, and protect his daughter. But at the mention of his daughter, his program shows an error, and he says that he has to warn her. Later, he gets hyper and says that he wants to take revenge on his makers and do unimaginable things to them both. Teresa orders to turn him off. It turns out that this specific host body has played several roles before, one of them being the role of a cannibal, and his current behavior is a mix of them all. When Stubbs asks Dolores what his father whispered in her ear, she says that he said that violent desires have violent ends. He asks if she has ever lied to them, or if she will ever hurt a living thing, and she says no, of course not. The tech asks if she's good to go, and he says that she has been updated many times and is the oldest host in the park. The episode ends with exactly how it started. Dolores wakes up. This time, another host is playing the role of her father, and the body of the previous host is sent to cold storage. Teddy once again wakes up on the train. The man in black is looking for the next level of the game. But this time, instead of showing no expression, Dolores slays the fly that sits on her face.